This is Jesus like you've never seen before. When people think of Jesus, the central figure from Christianity, the guy from the Bible, here are some of the images that usually come to mind, right? Shepherd, teacher, kind, soft-hearted, helpful to people, compassionate. But that's not the only image of Jesus in the Bible. The book of Revelation has a very different one. And I'll be honest, the first time I encountered it, I hated it. But before we get into that, hi. My name's Corey, and I'm an ordained minister and church planter, and I'm also the pastor of RedeemerOnline.church, which is the channel that you're watching right now. And it's my goal and aim to help you understand and practice the Christian faith, especially if you don't go to church right now. If that's something you're interested in, hit subscribe. We're doing a series of videos on the book of Revelation right now. Why? Well, because Revelation was so important to the early church when they were in seasons of suffering, chaos, and uncertainty. It was so important that it became ubiquitous. Everyone in every church across the known world was reading Revelation. And that was for 250 years before it was ever included in the Bible. And I want to know what it did for them, because I wonder if it would do the same for us. This is episode 3 of reading Revelation. In the second half of chapter 1, the author John tells of this vision that he has. It's almost like a fever dream. I heard behind me a loud voice like a trumpet which said, "Write on a scroll what you see and send it to the 7 churches, to Ephesus, Smyrna, Pergamum, Thyatira, Sardis, Philadelphia, and Laodicea." Quick reminders. This is apocalyptic literature, not end of the world apocalypse, but a revealing, a pulling back of the curtain on an unseen reality. And in apocalyptic literature, numbers, colors, and images carry deep meaning. So while these are real churches in real cities, the number 7 is significant. It means full or whole or complete. That means this vision is for the whole church. I turned around to see the voice that was speaking to me. And when I turned, I saw 7 golden lampstands. And among the lampstands was someone like a son of man. It's an ancient phrase that just means a person in human form, dressed in a robe reaching down to his feet and with a golden sash around his chest. The hair on his head was white like wool, as white as snow, and his eyes were like blazing fire. His feet were like glowing bronze in a furnace, and his voice was like the sound of rushing waters. In his right hand he held 7 stars, and coming out of his mouth was a sharp, double-edged sword. His face was like the sun shining in all its brilliance. What? One of the things that's important to know about the book of Revelation is that it's filled with incredibly stark and often unrealistic imagery like this. It's designed to do something for the reader, to evoke or to inspire a feeling. And what most people don't realize is that none of the imagery in the book is new. None of it's unique to Revelation. In the same way that you sometimes have dreams that meld together different experiences from your day, whatever you were steeped in or doing that day, John's vision is like a fever dream of imagery, each picture repeated or melded together from somewhere else in his own religious tradition. So what were these fever dream images supposed to evoke in the original readers? And what might it mean for you and me? Well, let's walk through his image bit by bit to find out. Let's start with the Son of Man with snow white hair. That's a melding together of 2 images from an Old Testament prophet named Daniel. Remember, prophets don't predict the future, they proclaim God's truth to powerful people. Daniel was a prophet during a time where his own people were suffering greatly at the hands of the Babylonians. And then one day, when all felt lost, he had this apocalyptic vision of God in which he describes God as the Ancient of Days with flowing white hair, white as snow or wool. And in that vision, he also sees a figure who is described as one like a son of man. In other words, a human figure. And John's vision melds these 2 images into one. Whoever this Son of Man-like figure is has now, in John's vision, become the Ancient of Days. What about the eyes that are blazing like fire, the long robe or the sash? What's the deal with the bronze feet, glowing like they're fresh out of a furnace? What do we do with all this stuff? Again, this is all imagery that comes from the book of Daniel, but later in his lifetime. While his people were living as exiles under the Persian Empire, Daniel had another vision of a heavenly figure in human form. I looked up, and there before me was a man dressed in linen with a belt of fine gold around his waist. His body was like topaz, his face like lightning, his eyes like flaming torches, his arms and legs like the gleam of burnished bronze, and his voice like the sound of a multitude. And this figure had a message for Daniel, the struggling prophet and his suffering people. The figure informed Daniel that he was currently doing battle with the unseen powers at play, and he delivered a message of hope for Daniel and his people. Okay, so these are old Daniel pictures, but what about the double-edged sword coming out from John's figure's mouth? Great question. That comes from the ancient Israelite prophet Isaiah. Isaiah described the future king to come from God's people as one who will judge justly, and the image that he offers is of a king who will strike the earth with the rod of his mouth. Later, when speaking of a prophet who will speak truth to the people, Isaiah says that God made his mouth to be like a sharpened sword. All these images get melded together, and they seem to indicate that this figure is somehow one with God, a bringer of justice, who's going to be fighting a battle against unseen powers that are at play in this world. So who is this person? Well, John continues, "When I saw him, I fell at his feet as though dead. Then he placed his right hand on me and said, 'Do not be afraid. I am the first and the last. I am the living one. I was dead, and now look, I am alive forever and ever, and I hold the keys of death and Hades.'" Well, that kind of settles it. It's supposed to be Jesus, but this is a Jesus like you've never seen, right? This isn't the humble, born in a stable, meek and mild-mannered rabbi. This Jesus looks more like a powerful cosmic warrior who's poised to judge the world, and to be honest, I don't know if I like this one. Which again, has got to make you wonder, why did people love this document so much? Why was it so meaningful to them to hear John's vision? Well, here's the beginning of an answer. All of that amalgamated imagery comes from times when the people of Israel, John's ancestors, were experiencing intense suffering. They were longing for release. They were digging deep for strength to endure the chaos, for hope that God would do something to change their situation. Cosmic Jesus then says to John, "Write therefore what you have seen, what is now, and what will take place later. The mystery of the 7 stars that you saw in my right hand and of the 7 golden lampstands is this. The 7 stars are the angels of the 7 churches, and the 7 lampstands are the 7 churches." Okay, so here's the image so far. Remember, apocalypse is not cataclysmic world-ending events. It's about the revelation, the pulling back of the curtain, peeking into the divine realm to see what's going on amidst your current circumstances. And John, in his vision, gets to peek behind the curtain. And what does he see? Well, he sees that Jesus is present with his churches. He's with them. He's among them. And not in a meek and mild way, but in a strong, conquering, cosmic way. These images from Israel's past, melded into one cosmic Jesus, are meant to evoke courage and strength for the reader. "I know you don't see him," John's saying, "but your heavy hitter is still in the lineup, and he's got a message for these churches. A message that's supposed to bring them courage and strength and peace amidst the chaos." What's that message? That's what we're going to get into next time. But for now, I think the original readers of this text would have found this vision, this idea of a cosmic conquering Jesus present with them, encouraging. It gave them some level of divine strength to keep going, to know that Jesus is holding the church in his hand, that he's holding you. If this brings up more questions about Revelation or more comments or thoughts, I want to hear from you, so put those in the comments down below. But for now, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time when we take up Jesus' message.